So, good morning. And this is Surviving the 80s, and I want you to come along with me. I'm taking a risk this morning because I'm going to make a pie in front of you. I never know how it's going to turn out when I get to the crust, but I'm going to tell you what I did and how I plan to do it, and you'll see some of it. Yesterday I picked half of our apple crop. I found out there's enough apples on it to make 2 pies if I only put 7 apples in each pie. So I think that'll be enough. And so what I've done this morning is peeled my apples, I've sliced them up, I'll show you. They're sliced. I put them in a pan with a little water, cinnamon, and some lemon, nutmeg that I ground fresh on it, and about 3 cloves. And I cook them just a wee bit to get them a little more tender, and it makes it, Tom enjoys it that way. Oh, and it has a little potato starch in it to help thicken it, and I may not have enough, but we'll see. Okay, so that is there. By now they are cool, and what I do, and I know probably none of you are going to do it this way, but I find it sort of fun to do. I do it by ratio, and and a ratio is usually in a 1-2-3 method, and a pie dough is a 1-2-3. It's 3 parts of flour, and my flour that I have in here is a mixture, and it's a mixture of organic, all-purpose white, organic whole wheat, and einkorn flour. And I've never put einkorn in a pie crust, and I wasn't brave enough to use it all. And besides that, I'm trying to use up all of my flour. Okay, so that's what's in there. And so last year I noticed I was doing it by ounces, and it was really easy. I'd take 6 ounces of flour, and then 4 ounces of my fat, and let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay, no, it would be, well, anyway, how it figured out was 6 of flour, 6, shoot, it was really easy, and 2 of water and 4 of fats. Okay, but 6 ounces wasn't quite enough. I got 2 crusts out of it, but the top crust was really skimpy, and it wasn't, there wasn't quite enough to make the nice edges. So I've increased it a little bit, and what I did now, I did it in grams. So what I have 232 grams of flour in here, which is more than 6 ounces. I can't tell you in ounces, but it's 232 grams. So that means I have to use 116 grams of the fats and 58 grams of water. That would make the 1 part. So that's what I have. I have the water measured out here, and I had 2 ice cubes in it to make it really cold. So that's in there. And I haven't measured this out at all, so I don't know how it's going to be, but this is grated up jack cheese. I usually don't put it in pie crust, but it's an apple pie. I'm going to try it. Okay, and then what I did on my fats, and they're in the refrigerator because I want them to be nice and cold. I think they're in the refrigerator. What did I do with, oh, right here. Okay. What I have on that, like I said, it takes 116 grams of fat. I have some butter in here, but the most of it is not lard, it's suet, and that's what I'm using. And because suet is pretty hard, I grated it up. So you see it in pieces here. And believe it or not, suet has the most perfect proportion between omega-3 and omega-6 of the saturated animal fats. Isn't that amazing? So I'm gonna put that in here. I'm gonna put about half of it, work it in, and then work in the other half, and just see if I can make a pie crust. And last year, lots of times I use my food processor, but I don't think I'll have to since I grated up the fat already. So we got about half of it in there. I'm going to put the other half in, and we'll go. And probably the cheese would add to the fat. And maybe I'll stick it in now. So that means I'm a little off proportion ratio, if that's the case. And there's my phone. I'm going to see who it is. And if I can ignore it. I have no idea. It's just going to ring. They'll leave a message, right? Okay. They're not supposed to do that when I'm making a video. I'm going to see if they left a message. This is how you get stuff all over your phone. No, I don't think they did. Well, let's see. They did, they did. I'm going to see, it might be Sheila. No, I don't want to do that. What did I do? Close it. I'm going to do it later. I did that same thing the other day. Okay. Now, before I put in the water, it's in there. I think it's talking. It's talking. I don't know why. Okay. So Tom, can you get by there, honey? You want to come over here and we'll tell happy birthday to Jim? We'll just say,
what am I saying?
Happy birthday to Jim.
Happy birthday, Jim.
Happy birthday, Jim. And as I'm making this pie, we're going to celebrate your birthday today, and I know it's belated, so you don't get any because it's the wrong day. But we'll be thinking of you.
Right.
Okay.
And after you get so many birthdays, Jim, you better quit because I've heard they can be fatal.
I think so. Okay. Anyway, with that, on with the adding the, I want a fork. Whoops, I want a long fork. Keep picking up short forks. There. And this is where my English friend put her water in like a salt shaker so it would just come out in little sprinkles over the flour. I think that would have, I should do that, but I've never done it. I always do it this way. And I want you to know that adding the water to pie dough and even in breads, it depends really how much water you use on the weather. Is it humid? You might use less. Is it dry? You might use more. Is your flour different? So even though I measured out the correct ratio, I don't think for my pie dough I have the correct. I think the ratio was made probably on the east where it was more humid than we have, because I know right now I'm going to have to add more water to this to really make it roll out right. So I've got some in the wings here, and I'm going to put it in this because I think it's easier to pour out of, because now I could really get in too much. And actually the pie dough, if I'd made it ahead and been able to put it in the refrigerator, it would have rolled out better, but I can't and do it this way. So I'll roll out part of it and put the other part in the refrigerator, hoping that it will get nice and cold and roll out better. So I'm going to take out what I think will make a pie crust. And I still may not have it wet enough, and I think this is where the acorn flour doesn't absorb water quite as quickly, so we'll just see what happens. I'm going to add a little more to what's left. I hope I didn't wish I'd done that to, no, I may have to still do it. I am going to break part of this off, add it back into here, see if we can really. Okay, now, you know what no, it wants to break apart. And that should be the right proportion, but it's just not going to be. Okay. Now I think that will be about good. And this half, I don't know which half I should work with. We'll just see. Okay, if I don't like this half, I'll switch, but I want that in the refrigerator. I'm going to put it in here. Okay. Okay, here we go. And I think I'll wipe my hands because it will be easier if my hands aren't sticky when I go to work with it. And I think I'll do it with cold water so I have cold hands. And that will make it easier. Okay, so I got cold hands, warm heart, and probably would be nice to have some flour on the board. And I'm just going to get out, I think, well, I'll get out this one, it's the closest. It's the whole wheat. Actually, I don't know, it's not, there. My counter gets smaller and smaller as I pick my tomatoes, and that's my this morning's pick. And I picked green beans too. Okay, here we go. I think it's going to do it. I was going to read the acorn pie crust recipe before I started this, but I didn't. No use confusing me with the facts. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get some flour in a cup so I can just work with it. Okay. Now, we'll see what we get. And it's not that I'm such an expert pie maker that I'm doing this, but I thought you might enjoy an apple pie. And I'm sure adding this much flour to my board changes my ratio, but I've already really changed it anyway. Because of the cheese, the extra water, and maybe the flour will put it back in proportion. And this rolling pin was, you notice it's got one handle off here, was my first rolling pin when I got married. I was a December bride. So we're in the half year now, the second half of the year. I made my first pie at my grandfather's house with his help. My brother was a pie maker. Craig is a pie maker. My next door neighbor, our son. Now this is not going round, so I'm not sure how it's going to fit in my pie thing. I'm sure it isn't. See, it's not anywhere big enough yet. So it has to go thinner. And it's not sticking though. That's nice. But it's not really staying together either. I mean, it's not a nice round. It's got a split in it here. Okay, I'm going to try to get it in there. I think I'll have to piece it. Do I want it? Let's see. I could get a little more out here to give me a little more to piece with. Yeah, you see, it's not really big enough, but we'll work at it because I'm gonna piece it in here. Okay, so this will come over here and help fill up the gap here. This will go down like this, and I folded some of that over. Oh well. Okay, and I still have some blank spaces here. Well, let's see. I'm going to cut some of this off here. Whoops. Maybe if I turn the knife. Well, I'm not doing well on that. Okay, so it's not exactly right. But I've got a bottom crust of some sort. Oh, and I got some pieces down here. Okay. There it is. I'm going to put my apples in. And you may have noticed, I'm not really a perfectionist, so they're not going to go in a nice layered fashion. They're going to go in. They smell like apples. Okay, and like I say, I've got the cinnamon already in here. Oh, and I don't think I told you, when I cooked them, I put in a tablespoon of sugar, and I don't know if it's, I think it's coconut sugar, but it's not white cane or beet flour. I think the beet flour now is pretty much all GMO. In Idaho, they raised a lot of beets. Oh, and when sugar is making, it does not smell good. We live near us. Well, if the wind was the wrong direction, sometimes you could smell it. But fortunately, the wind usually went the other way. Okay, and then I'm putting in that juice that I cooked them in with, and it's a nice heaping. And you know what? I should have had my top crust made before I did that, but I didn't. Learn that. Make your top crust first before you put your apples in. Yeah. This is learning by errors. That's my teaching method, I suppose. Okay, now hopefully this one is a little colder and will do better. Here, I'll just put that in there. Okay, so here we go, and we'll see what happens. Well, it's got a little break on this side. And I think it might turn out well. Now, while I'm finishing the top crust, I'm going to tell you a story about, I don't know if this is a real story or not, but in a little town they used to have a pie contest every year. And Mrs. Green, we'll use that name, won every year. She made the most beautiful pies. The little edges were just so neat. And all of the, no matter how many times they changed the judges, she always won. And it was because her pies always looked the nicest. And all the women thought, how does she do that? How does she make her edges so perfect like that? And so nice. Well, finally, after so many years, they couldn't handle it any longer. They just had to find out. So they had one woman, they delegated her to go up to the woman's house, sneak up, and peek in her kitchen while she was making her pie. And she got a box, and she snuck up. She put the box in front of the window, and just as she looked in the window, she saw something that made her about fall off her box. What was happening inside? The woman was putting on the last touches to her pie to make that wonderful edge. And what she had done, she'd taken her false teeth out and gone around the edge of the pie with her false teeth. And that's the secret to a beautiful edge. Well, since I don't have false teeth, I can't make that edge either. But maybe someday. I don't think so. Oops, oops. Up. There we go. It was good until then. It was too good to be true. Okay. Let's just stick some down there. Let's go like that. We'll get this thing yet. Before we're through, Jim will be glad he's not getting any of this pie. Don't forget to tell Jim a belated happy birthday. From Hardiness Approach are regenerate, don't degenerate. Okay, I think this is all I'm going to do. I'll probably have to piece this one, but we'll go for it. And this is pie crust made in somewhat of a ratio and not tied down to a recipe. But you know what? Go ahead and use a recipe if you want. This is just a fun way to do it. And I could have got this one thinner, I realize now. Okay. But we are getting it on here. And this one is bigger, worked better. So we're going to go around and make some sort of edging and have an apple pie, our first of the season. I make pumpkin pies, apple, fruit. Most years we've had peaches about now, but we lost our wonderful peach tree that would have been ripe now with too much water a couple of winters ago. And so we don't have peaches. And our daughter is, I think, going to bring me some apricots so I can make an apricot pie. And they are good. Okay, now we'll just go around best we can without those fancy nice edges. Oh, I was going to add, it's too late now, I was going to add 2 more tablespoons of sugar. I've got 1 tablespoon in. This is going to be a little bit of a tart pie. I was going to do that. Well, it's an apple pie with 1 tablespoon of sugar. I would have put 3 in. I've made them with 2, so maybe 1 will make it.
If it's too tart, I'll just pour some syrup on it.
Right, right. Oh, yeah, well, I'm sorry.